Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodananda Raja Jana Ranjana Raja Jana Yashodananda Raja Jana Ranjana Raja Jana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jana Vallabha Yashodananda Raja Jana Ranjana Raja Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vishnupada Paramahamsa Viradjagacharya Astota Stata Shishima Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Viradjagacharya Astota Stata Shishima Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Tago Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita chapter entitled Jet Age Parivrajaka Acharya. Prabhupada gave the analogy that when cooking rice, the cook need test only one grain to determine whether the whole pot of rice is done. Similarly, by talking with this one Russian youth, Prabhupada could tell that the Russian people were not satisfied in their so-called ideal land of Marxism. Just as Ivan was keenly receptive to Krishna consciousness, millions of other Russians would be also. Chanika Pandit says that one blooming flower can refresh a whole forest, and that a fire in a single tree can burn the whole forest. From the Marxist point of view, Ivan was the fire that would spread Krishna consciousness to others, thus defeating the communist ideology. And from Prabhupada's point of view, he was the aromatic flower that would lend its fragrance to many others. Prabhupada's visit to Russia was no obscure interlude, but had become an occasion for planting the seed of Krishna consciousness in a destitute land. Srila Prabhupada had brought the movement of Lord Chaitanya to yet another country. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself had predicted that the Sankirtan movement would go to every town and village. Yet for hundreds of years, that prediction had remained unfulfilled. Prabhupada, however, in the few years since his first trip to America in 1965, had again and again planted Lord Chaitanya's message in one unlikely place after another. And of all places, this was perhaps the most unlikely. During a brief government-supervised visit to Moscow, he had planted the seed of Krishna consciousness within the Soviet Union. He was like the needle, and everyone and everything connected with him was like the thread that would follow. Professor Kotovsky had remarked that Prabhupada's stay in an old-fashioned hotel would not prove very interesting, but Prabhupada, unknown to Professor Kotovsky, was transcendental to Moscow or any other place in the material world. Prabhupada had come to this place, and Krishna had sent a sincere soul to him to receive the gift of Krishna consciousness. This had happened not by devious espionage against the Soviet government, but by the presence of Krishna's pure devotee and his natural desire to satisfy Krishna by preaching. In response to Prabhupada's pure desire, Krishna has sent one boy. And from that one boy, the desire would spread to others. Nothing, not even an iron curtain, could stop Krishna consciousness. The soul's natural function was to serve Krishna, and Krishna's natural will was to satisfy the pure desires of his devotees. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 14, Text 32. The verse is in prose, so I'll just read it once. Thank you. Kvachitru Aihikarteshu griheshu ramsyam yata vanara sutadara vatsalo vyavayakshana. Synonyms. Kvachit, sometimes. Drumavat, like trees. As monkeys jump from one tree to another, the conditioned soul transmigrates from one body to another. Aihika arteshu, simply to bring about better worldly comforts. Griheshu, in houses or bodies. Ramsyam, delighting in one body after another, either in animal life, human life, or demigod life. Yata, exactly as Vanara, the monkey. Sutadara Vatsala, very affectionate to the children and wife. Vyavayakshana, whose leisure time is spent in sex pleasure. Translation. Just as a monkey jumps from one tree to another, the conditioned soul jumps from one body to another. As the monkey is ultimately captured by the hunter and is unable to get out of captivity, the conditioned soul, being captivated by momentary sex pleasure, becomes attached to different types of bodies and is engaged in family life. Family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure, and thus he is completely unable to get out of the material clutches. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishaya Kalu Sarvatasyat. Bodily necessities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, all very easily available in any form of life. It is stated here that the Vanara monkey is very much attracted to sex. Each monkey keeps at least 24 wives, and he jumps from one tree to another to capture the female monkeys. Thus he immediately engages in sexual intercourse. In this way, the monkey's business is to jump from one tree to another and enjoy sex with his wives. The conditioned soul is doing the same thing, transmigrating from one body to another and engaging in sex. Thus he completely forgets how to become free from the clutches of material engagement. Sometimes the monkey is captured by a hunter, who sells its body to doctors, so that its glands can be removed for the benefit of another monkey. All this is going on in the name of economic development and improved sex life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. To be called a monkey is derogatory. In racist terminology, it's used to describe a certain race, which I belong to. And if that's ever done, then there is massive consequences for calling somebody a monkey. But according to Darwin's theory that we have descended into monkeys, from monkeys, that is a reality according to popular Western notions. And the whole world very happily accepts that. So in one lens, they think it's derogatory, but in another lens, they accept it very readily. So this notion that we have descended from monkeys, of course, it's atheistic, and therefore Western culture now is suffering from it. Prabhupada was very much against it. Christians also against Darwin's evolutionary theory. Because it is atheistic, it leads people away from God. So Prabhupada, he spoke against it in many ways. At one point he said, I came here for two reasons to this material world. To establish Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to defeat these rascal scientists. He's preaching in the Western countries, and the Western countries are affected very much by this notion. Another time he said, the more you kick on Darwin's face, the more you worship Radha and Krishna. But another time, he actually gave a little bit of slack to this notion. He was he was um he was in a room conversation, I think, or speaking to some professor, and the professor was speaking of Darwin's theory. We have come from monkeys. So Prabhupada replied, uh, maybe you came from a monkey, but I didn't. So actually, in the previous purport to here, or maybe the one before, Prabhupada also says like that. He says, he quotes scripture, who says that some people, they come from monkeys. Because in the evolutionary cycle, where one goes through 8 million species of life and then comes to the human, if they're coming from an animal life, of course, some of us may not be coming from animal life because you can go up and down. You may come from the demigod planets. You may come from a deer like Judd Bart. You may come from a human. But if you are coming directly from the animal species through evolution, you would come from three different species. In the mode of goodness, it's a cow. In the mode of passion, it's a lion. And in the mode of ignorance, it's a monkey. So Prabhupada there in the purpose, he says, oh, Darwin, looks like Darwin's right. They did come from monkeys. So he gives them a little bit of slack, he gives a little rope. Okay, maybe he did, maybe he did. So it's one thing to come from a monkey, but another thing is to keep acting like a monkey. There's another, I don't know if it's Vedic or where it's from. It must be Vedic because it's in Sanskrit. Nagna matraka nyaya. Prabhupada quotes this. He says this is a certain kind of nyaya, logic. And the logic says that if you were a certain way previously, that means that quality has to remain with you. And particularly, it says that if a lady was naked in her youth, as babies run around naked, then even when she becomes a mother and gives birth to so many children, she should still remain naked. So it's illogical. Through progression, one may have been a certain way, but doesn't mean they should remain that way. So through this logic, one can also understand, okay, maybe you were a monkey before, maybe you did descend from monkeys, but it doesn't mean you continue to act like a monkey. And so here Prabhupada gives this purport describing how human beings are living like monkeys. Actually, it's an analogy, first of all, given in the text. The analogy is that the conditioned soul is the monkey. The tree is the body. The monkey's jumping from tree to tree, so we're jumping from body to body. And in that tree, or in that body, one becomes captured by a hunter, and the hunter is sex life. And then the hunter puts you in a cage, and the cage is family life. So there's the body, there's the soul, there's the body, there's sex life, there's family life. And then one jumps to another body. Again, sex life becomes captured. Again, household life. Again, another body. So the monkey is doing like that. He's jumping from tree to tree. And what is he doing? He's captivated by sex life. And this is the cycle of existence. So human beings should not act like monkeys. Actually, to call somebody a monkey now is like probably a compliment because human beings are living worse than monkeys. So a monkey, Prabhupada also describes, and we see that they have sex in public. No problem. But human beings nowadays, they are lucky if you have sex on the street, a few people walking by might see you, maybe a handful. But now, pornography being so massive, you can have sex online for millions of people to watch. And actually, pornography, it's like a unspoken reality, but it's huge. The whole world is engaged in it. It used to be also there's kind of some kind of shame in engaging in such activities. You have to like probably go to like some some adult movie store and you're like embarrassed. You probably have to wear a mask because you don't want the guy knowing that the next door neighbor is coming to rent a movie. But now you can just do it by a click of a button. And actually, the unfortunate situation is that just like you can upload videos on YouTube, everybody, all you need to become like a porn star now is just like a camera and some internet connection, and you're free to do as you like. So for us, it's difficult to hear, but this is the reality. It's the unspoken reality of the age of Kali. They say like a very large percentage of internet usage is just for that activity. So somebody may externally look like they're very cultured. They may even have a wife and kids and a good job, but in their own private privacy, they're just engaged in such abominable activities. So this is affecting everyone, and it's become the norm. As Prabhupada says, in the age of Kali, people have such horrible activities, but society creates a false sense of honor for them. So especially the younger generation now, we see that their whole brain is fried by this activity. And again, it's getting worse and worse. One lady, she told me, she's like some activist. She's American. I met her on the street during Diwali distributing books, and she told me, she said actually in America, in some states, they're trying to reduce the age of consent to 14 years old because it's pedophilia and so many other things are going on. So the consciousness of sex life, the more one engages in it, the more the hit needs to be stronger. Just like drug addicts, they start with something small, then you need more and more and more and more. So sex life is like that. The more one engages in it, the more degraded things become normal. So for parents who have kids also, they have to be very cautious. As soon as a person has a cell phone, as soon as a person has a computer, it's easily accessible. Anybody can get it. So hide your kids. Funny, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but there was like some viral video some years ago, and it was like it was a news reporter um, interviewing a guy from the hood, from like low income housing. And what had happened was during the night, one guy had climbed through the window and he got into bed with this guy's sister. And she got up freaking out. What's happening? So as soon as she got up, the guy jumped out the window and ran off. So it was reported as a crime. And uh, the TV reporters came and they were interviewing this guy. He was like flamboyant homosexual guy who was interviewing. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Oh, what had happened was this guy, some pedophile, is roaming around. He's climbing through your windows. He's he's raping your sisters. So you better hide your sister, hide your kids, and hide your husbands too, because they're raping everybody out here." So this video, because it's comedic, but like it went viral, millions of people are watching it. So it's the same principle, you gotta because there is so much degraded activities, then one has to protect their family, particularly the children have to be protected from so many influences that are trying to influence them to act in a certain way. Because the saying goes, monkey see, monkey do. As human nature is like that as well. So once something becomes the norm, then although originally it's easy to perceive that it's something I would never indulge in, but because everybody is doing it, it's normal. 8 billion people in the world are doing it. If I do it, it's just how the world goes. So it's unfortunate. but the realities have to be told. They say the truth will set you free, but first it might upset you. So this is the basic principle of material existence, actually. Pum sastriya mituni bhava metam. Ato hridaya granthi ahur tayor. I forget the last verse of the verse. But the basic principle of material existence is attraction between male and female. And based on that, there's a knot in the heart. And that knot is very strong, and it keeps a person here in this material world willingly. Like if you actually just took away sex desire from the world, very easily we would be able to see the miseries of life. But because that one activity is there, one becomes distracted and actually becomes willing to tolerate the, as Kunti says, let the calamities come in again and again so I can see you again and again. But the conditioned soul says, let the calamities come again and again as long as I can have sex again and again. Prabhupada gives the example of a goat that's in line to being slaughtered. And so the goat sees so many other goats being killed ahead of them, but they don't mind. They have sex while they're on the road to death. So humanity becomes like that. We see death around us, we see misery, we see old age, we see so much corruption, so much exploitation, so much emotional, psychological damage, so much hard work, so much anxiety. But just because one thing is around, sex life, all these things we become blinded to. If that one thing isn't there, one will very quickly leave the material world because it's actually what we come here for. Like it's like if you went to a restaurant and there was no food, you would just leave. So it's quite a binding force, and through regulation, it has to be curtailed. That's the only way. Because just like eating, sleeping, fearing is there, mating is also a pushing of the body. So therefore it said, until the body perishes, this urge will remain. Uh, Through progression, one has to wane it off. And so therefore we hear that in 3 ashrams, the activity is totally prohibited. And only in one is it allowed. And even there, it's allowed in a restricted manner. Signifying that the whole human mission actually is to get free from this pushing. And I've heard it described that even in the stage of bhava, still a little bit of material desire may still remain, but it becomes like a small faint sound in the distance. Just like currently we hear somebody mowing the lawn here, but it's not distracting us. It's very far in the distance. But in the beginning, it's all encompassing. For the conditioned soul, it's all they can think of. So through purification, the noise becomes quieter, quieter, quieter until it doesn't even disturb one anymore. But still, one has to be careful, even to the last moment of death, as we have seen in our ISKCON society recently also. Many how's the word go? Stalwarts fell victim. One maybe 80, 90 years old, still the urge remains. There was one king who was a little doubtful that how is it that a person can remain attracted to sex life even when it was so elderly. So his minister, he said, I will prove this to you. Prabhupada gives a story. So he said, we'll go to the hospital and bring your young daughter with you. So he brought her along and he went, and there was a dying man on his bed. And when a king comes in, he usually commands all attention. Oh, the king's here. So you're totally absorbed in the king, his presence. But he said, the minister said, when you go in here, pay attention to this old man, what he is conscious of. So he brought in his daughter, and the old man didn't even realize the king was there. He was just looking at the young daughter. So Prabhupada here says also, they take the gland from the one monkey and give it to another monkey. And he's describing about how old people, the body is falling apart. So then through scientific advancement, then they take the gland from one species of life, just like they have like kidney transplants. Then they do all kind of corrupt stuff like that to allow the old man to be able to engage in sex life continuously. Prabhupada also says that, they have seen that a person in old age who's going to strip clubs, paying $50 to enter. Huh. So it's actually pretty embarrassing to be old and lusty simultaneously. It's like the worst thing in history. And that's what keeps the conditioned soul here. Birth after birth after birth. For momentary pleasure that never satisfies. Dushpurena analena cha. So the process of Krishna consciousness is to do that, to purify the soul. One time Prabhupada gave a talk in a pandal, and thousands of people were there in India. And when he was leaving, everyone was bowing down to him, trying to touch his feet. And so Tamal Krishna Maharaj was right next to him. And so when they were just about to exit, finally, after so many people were trying to touch Prabhupada's feet, Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna, "Do you know why they are honoring me like this?" And Tamal asked, "Why, Prabhupada?" And he said, "Because I am free from sex desire." Hmm. So it's the human mission. The human form is very rarely achieved. It should be used from a tender age of 5. Kumara acharat pragyo dharman bhagavataniha durlabam manusanjama tatyapatruva madhyodam. It's very rarely achieved and it's temporary, just like any other body is, but it can give one the greatest benefit. And actually, one gets it after going, as we said, through 8 million other species of life. Prabhupada described this as it's not that you just go through the dog species and then you go to the next one. That when you become a dog, you have to go through every dog, Chihuahua, Pit Bull, and every other one there is. And then you get the next form. And then you go through all of them there, all of the cats and whatever else there is, from the aquatics to the plants to the reptiles to the beasts. And then finally you get the human form of life. So in this human form of life, one has the opportunity to get out of the cycle altogether. But if one misuses it, then that's the greatest detriment. So the duty of the devotee actually is to help people to get out of this, to save them from this animalistic life. And that's what Prabhupada has done, actually just by touching a book, as he said, one gets a human form of life. One devotee I know, he used to go on books and he wasn't able to distribute many books. But he said, my meditation is when I go out, I just try to get people to touch the book and appreciate it. And I think I meditate on giving human forms of lives to everyone. So everyone I meet, I think human form of life, human form of life, human form of life. And also if they take prasad, we hear that they get the opportunity. If they know that it's prasad offered to Krishna, then they get another human form of life. If they don't, then they get the opportunity to take prasad again. So we're saving people from degradation. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya. Even a little bit done in Krishna consciousness saves one from the greatest type of fear. And in those purports, Prabhupada says, what is the greatest danger? The greatest danger is losing the human form. So as much as we are trying to save others, we're also trying to save ourselves. Like, often we may take it for granted. Even if I fall down, I'll get another human form of life. But Prabhupada, in the 5th canto also, in regards to Jad Bharat, he says if you fall down purposefully, you should be prepared that Krishna will punish you, at least for one life. You go down to the animal species. So never take it for granted that, oh, now I'm safe, now I'm all good. I can never go down to degraded consciousness again. Actually, Prabhupada also describes how those who are addicted to sex life living in Vrndavan, they have to be punished by becoming monkeys in Vrindavan. Uh, so the monkey, at least the monkey is vegetarian. Like, sometimes devotees, they leave Krishna consciousness. And what's the only thing they keep? Is they don't eat, they remain vegetarian. One time when um, this is in Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, there was one guy asked, it's Prabhupada going back and forth with Bob Cohen, I think his name is. So he was telling Prabhupada, oh, Prabhupada, I'm very spiritual. Uh, how is that? I'm vegetarian. And Prabhupada replied, vegetarian is no qualification. Even the monkeys are vegetarian. In other words, I know you're a vegetarian, but what about illicit sex? What about intoxication? These are um, the treats of the age of Kali. So I guess in conclusion, the human form of life is very rare. Uh, there are 8 billion humans on the planet today. They have been given this opportunity. But unfortunately, due to being misled and I guess due to the root of our mm, existence here, then the human form of life is wasted just like the animals. So I think I'll stop here. I will ask if anybody would like to contribute, ask or say anything.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for bringing out the essential points of this verse very nicely. And particularly, as you have told, the very basic hindrance of Krishna consciousness in the present age is the attraction between opposite sex. And unfortunately, this is the order of the day for most of the countries, and the administrators are shutting their eyes on this important issue. And as a result, the human life, which is meant for something else, I mean, a higher, because of a higher consciousness the God has given us, and to utilize it for the service of the Lord, is being neglected. And Prabhupada's movement of Krishna consciousness is to eradicate or free the world from this, from the present state, animal life to a higher human life or God consciousness. And incidentally, the movement is gradually gaining ground, but it is still in a very little influence on the whole of the human society as far as the whole world is concerned. But we are confident if we follow the Prabhupada's principle that if we remain pure, I mean, purity is the force. If we remain pure in ourselves as the members of the society remain pure and truly pursues the value of Krishna consciousness, and by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and with the mercy of Prabhupada's blessing and other acharyas who have given us this instruction, it will be successful in the long run, in spite of its present dark situation we are facing. But the hard reality is that we have to work hard to get rid of it, because the opposite force is too strong, and we have to overcome that. And we must have the confidence on our acharyas and the Lord that we will overcome it one day. With that, this is my observation. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. I guess I should say one thing is that for a lot of people on this call, probably they're living a very pure life, and Indian culture is also very much refined. Western culture is totally different. It's degraded. Of course, India is coming more and more to that standard now. But it's a good thing to remember that we are living in the West, and this is the society that we are a part of. So although many things I have said may not be applicable to our devotees, they are applicable to the world around us, so it's good to remember them. So I do apologize if I said anything that was unpalatable to anyone here. So
Hare
thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam. Thank you as always. Very, very powerful message. Thank you very much. Very hard hitting and as you said, yeah, truth sets us free. But yeah, first the truth has to upset. Only then it can set us on the right path. No, thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, in fact, even Guru Maharaj used to say, it is it is to what very nicely used to say, it is to preaching he's saying to comfort the distressed and to distress the comfortable. So very nice. So yeah, very nice. Thank you for that. So Prabhu, just a thought here. Like many of the acharyas, they keep. I know even it is said that there's this golden age, the 10,000 year golden age, and all this. But as we see, it how I'm just wondering how that's going to, any thoughts on how that will manifest, because it only seems to be going downhill. In
Yes.
fact, more and more downhill. So is that more for encouragement, that the golden age what they're talking about, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Just wanted your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, my spiritual master, he describes that the golden age will be there, and it's beginning, 10,000 years of it from the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it'll increase, particularly the prediction is from the rise of this temple of the Vedic planetarium. Then the boom will be there. So Krishna consciousness will increase, just like we see Prabhupada in just 50 years. He did so much. Many historians and people who study religious movements, they say that nobody can compare to what Prabhupada has done. One professor, he said, only two people I can think of who did similar to Prabhupada is Jesus and Muhammad. But he said Prabhupada was even greater because Jesus and Muhammad, they only preached to their people and their locality, but Srila Prabhupada spread it all over the world. So what took Christianity 2,000 years, practically, Prabhupada has done like 50% of that in 50 years. And so in 100 years, imagine what the result will be. So yes, Krishna consciousness will increase and the golden age will be there. But at the same time, Kali Yuga will simultaneously progress. And so my spiritual master, he described it as the reign of Kali Yuga will continue, but within that, there'll be an umbrella of Lord Chaitanya's movement, and anybody who comes underneath that umbrella will be sheltered from the age of Kali. So within the age of Kali, there will be an umbrella which is like the age of Satya by the power of the Sankirtan movement. And so both things will continue to be there. But after 10,000 years, then it's degradation. So much so that it's described that the devotees will be living, if you want to practice devotional service, you practically have to dig an underground bunker and live there because the surface of the globe will be so horrific. And so 10,000 years seems to be a lot, but it's not very long actually. And if you 10,000 years is like, if you live 100 years, 100 lifetimes. But it's described also that, if you go to the heavenly planets, which sometimes that's the result for a fallen devotee, then the lifespan in the heavenly planets is 10,000 years. And that's even longer by human calculations. So then you miss the whole umbrella of Lord Chaitanya's movement. And that's it. You got to wait another whole day of Brahma to get the opportunity again, because that's when Lord Chaitanya appears, just after Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma. So the age of Kali will continue, and the work of the devotees will be even harder and harder. The more fallen the people, the more work the devotees have to be able to bring them to Krishna consciousness. So even now we see that compared to the 70s, when Prabhupada was here, people were flocking to Krishna consciousness, Westerners were. But now to make one Western devotee is very, very difficult, especially the young generation. They're like, even if they're interested in Krishna consciousness, still they have no determination at all. They're very weak to be able to follow the principles, to be able to chant more. To speak of 16 rounds, one round to get somebody to do that regularly, it's like you just have to drag them through the mud. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he said it takes gallons of blood to make one devotee. But now it's like it takes practically oceans of blood to make one devotee. So Western culture is very, very difficult, very, very degraded. And primarily two things are doing that: illicit sex and intoxication. They're ruining everyone's brain. In medieval times, they used to have this. They used to suppress the people because people want to rebel against governments all the time. So they would suppress them by two things. They call them bread and circus. You give them food, all kinds of amazing food, and they leave you alone. And if you give them circus, gladiator games, and all kinds of entertainment that they used to have back then also they'll leave you alone. They won't question the government. So now in the same way, in the same sinister propaganda or sinister intention, governments are doing that. They give people, instead of food, intoxication. And instead of circus, it's entertainment. And entertainment includes pornography. So these two things, you give people these two, and they can care less about what the government is doing. So therefore, manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hupadrita. The age of Kali, people are being misled, misguided. And so there is the demoniac and there is the godly. But most people, they fit into the innocent category. And the innocent, because the leaders are demoniac, they're all being strayed away by these demoniac personalities who don't have anybody's interest at heart. So the age of Kali is actually progressing further and further because the leaders of society, this is their intention. I mean, the things, we couldn't even imagine what things are going on behind closed doors. Some may say a conspiracy or not, but they say these rich people, billionaires and trillionaires, they have like islands where they do all kinds of freaky stuff. They have secret demoniac rituals, and they're just totally out the gate what's going on. So this is the age of Kali, and it's good because knowing these things should give us a sense of urgency that this is not the place I want to be. Just for some momentary gratification, one has to suffer so much. So yeah, that's the explanation my spiritual master gives. The age of Kali will progress. It's progressing right underneath our nose. We couldn't even imagine what's going on. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is sheltering us. So while being sheltered, we should also be cautious to understand what the weather outside is like. Then we won't be tempted to go out into the storm, thinking it's all fine. So yeah, I hope that helps in some way for you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for clarifying that.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Should we stop here?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it appears there's no other person to make any comment, so the class may be concluded. Thank you once again for the nice
Hare Krishna.
statements you have made. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa dubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. His Grace Vrndavan Madhurya Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to assembled
Hare
devotees.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.